Right, welcome back. And yes, if we speak about the Egyptian-Japanese relations, and Egypt was invited on a very special invitation from the Japanese Prime Minister. How do we assess relations between Egypt and Japan? And from your point of view, do you think that, of course, this is not the first visit by the president to Japan. There was another visit in 2016, and the president this year is attending the G20 and then the TICAD. If we see all that, how do you assess the Japanese-Egyptian relations? And are we going in another qualitative leap, or are we seeing a qualitative leap in relations between both countries?
Well, let's not forget that when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi some years ago visited Japan, he was the first, one of the rare foreign leaders who were invited to give a speech in the Japanese parliament. This protocol is not done with every foreign leader. It's just for special leaders. And I think that the relations, or let's say President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has his own way in dealing in these kind of relations, which is personal relations with all these leaders. Of course, world leaders wanted to know who is this new young leader heading Egypt towards development. He started having his own meetings with them, and I think that the personal charisma of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi opened the gate for Egypt in this. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is a very powerful leader in the world, and he chooses well his allies in the world. And I think that inviting President al-Sisi is something very, very important. That means that he's a man of confidence, that Japan intends to invest in Egypt. Japan has a role also in geopolitical mediation, as we have seen in Iran. So that means that they want to work with the nations of this region very, very closely. Japan financed many projects in the Palestinian Authority, so they are present in the conflicts in this region. So I think working with Egypt and the leadership of Egypt is very important for the Japanese, and it will be developed more and more in the coming years, because as I just mentioned, the presence of China in Africa is also something not very well read by well seen by the Japanese, who wants also have part in development in Africa. So we are open to all the countries. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has excellent relations with all the superpowers, whatever happens between them, whether it was President Trump or President Vladimir Putin, was the Chinese Prime Minister Xi Jinping, or was the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. So we have excellent relations with all these superpowers. That's what took place now, that Egypt is invited. It's very, very natural. It's not a surprise.
No, definitely
it's a fruit of a huge work.
It's not, by the way, the first time to be invited to the G20.
And let me emphasize something very important, that in October 2019, next October, there will be a Russian-African summit, and Egypt will be the head of this African delegation of presidents who will go there. So now Russia, is looking at Egypt as the gate of Africa, and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the representative of this huge country.
So if we, because our time is limited here, Egypt is, as you said, the gate of Africa, but it also has the opportunity to be the chairman this year. Of course, 1 year is not enough for all the dreams of Egypt to be able to be implemented, nor for the African dreams that we can really be able to do it in 1 year. But how do you view priorities put beforehand, or Egypt's priorities for Africa?
First of all, there's two main points in this. The first point is that I think that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as he's a man who works according to timetable, he knows that 12 months is not enough, as you said. So he has priorities working on it. The priorities that he's working on is to ensure that Africa will have the first steps of development, economic development and digital networking. This is the first point. The second point, it's that, if the 12 months of Egypt's presidency will end, it's not the end of Africa's hopes, because Egypt still has a tremendous role in this continent. And I think that the next president of the African Union will ask Egypt's help, will ask Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to work closely with him. So it's not the end. The priorities are economic development, having stability in the region, fighting terrorism in Libya, fighting terrorism with Boko Haram in Nigeria and Cameroon. So this won't be done quickly, but at least there will be a map. This map could be followed afterwards, like what's happening in the EU. There is the chain of presidency between the countries, but there is one policy.
You mean here laying the foundation or the basis for a long-term plan?
Exactly.
Right. If we speak about our foreign policy at large, and we speak of how we are applying our foreign policy, particularly of what concerns our dreams for Africa.
It's building bridges with everyone. We are keeping the same line, is that like Egypt worked with everyone, we are now working with every country and representing Africa towards this country. So it's a huge burden, but it's the right choice. We have to build bridges. This is our policy. Building bridges on one condition is keeping our sovereignty as a red line, that we are independent, we are capable of taking our own decisions. Cooperation does not mean pressure. Cooperation means friendship, brotherhood, and development.
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, our time is out, but definitely will be updated during the upcoming days with this important Egyptian participation in the G20. Dr. Cherif AMIR, Professor of Political Science, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Tomorrow will be a very interesting episode. Until tomorrow, it's good night.